just a couple of reminders. There are bookmarks, there's stickers, and there are discussion packets over on the left-hand side. Well, actually, your right hand, my left hand from here. I'm Mary Linney. I'm the chair of the DCF Committee, and I'm a librarian at Brattleboro Area Middle School. I'm going to let the rest of the committee introduce themselves as well.
Sure. I'm Lauren Chabot, and I'm the librarian at Main Street Middle School in Montpelier.
I'm Grace Green. I'm the Youth Services Consultant for the Department of Libraries.
I'm Julie Pickett. I'm the children's/young adult librarian at the Stowe Free Library.
I'm Hannah Peacock. I'm the Youth Services Librarian at the Burnham Library in Colchester.
I'm Caitlin Corliss, and I'm at the Essex Free Library.
There's a seat way up front. I could heckle you, Cheryl, if you came up.
We're missing two members of the committee who had prior commitments. We'll be talking about their books in their absence. So we're just going to show a PowerPoint with the book covers and give you a little bit of information about each one of the books.
Is this on? I don't know if you need it. Okay, The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate. I am Ivan. I am a gorilla. It's not as easy as it looks. I was captured when I was a baby, and I went to live with Mac, the owner of the Big Top Mall and Video Arcade. At first, I lived at home with Mac and his wife, but when I made a mess of things, I was brought to the Big Top Mall. This domain of mine that you see me in, I've been in for 9,855 days. That's 27 years. I watch a lot of TV, and I like to draw. Things could be worse. I have a few friends. Bob, a smart alecky stray dog who sleeps on my belly at night. Stella, the old circus elephant who's been here longer than I have. And that girl, Julia, whose father cleans the place at night. Julia sees the artist in me and keeps me supplied with crayons and paper. Things are starting to change around here. A new baby elephant named Ruby has been brought in to drum up business. That little elephant keeps asking me questions about my former life. I'm starting to remember what it was like to be a gorilla, a real gorilla in the jungle. Now Stella isn't doing too well. She has an infection in her foot and is really sick, and she's asking me to do something for her. I said I would. I promised her I would do something to get Ruby out of here. I am a silverback gorilla. This is my domain. Read my story and find out if I live up to my promise.
Shadow and Bone by Lee Bardugo. For hundreds of years, the kingdom of Ravka has been at war with its neighbors and divided by the Fold, in an almost impassable area of darkness terrorized by bloodthirsty monsters. The kingdom relies on an alliance between the king and the Darkling, the mysterious leader of a magical elite called the Grisha, to protect its boundaries. Alina and Mal have grown up as orphans of this war, helping each other survive a childhood of loneliness and deprivation. Mal is a talented tracker whose good looks and charm catch the eye of women of all ranks. Plain and unremarkable, Alina is a map maker working in the same regiment. When they are sent on a mission across the Fold, their convoy is attacked, and Alina's hidden power as a rare sun summoner is revealed. Taken by the Darkling and initiated into the luxurious life of the Grisha, Alina must navigate the swiftly moving currents of political intrigue and brutal ambition as she comes to terms with the newly awakened desire. Can Alina find a way to take power over her gift before others chain her as a weapon they can control? Is it necessary to sacrifice Alina's freedom and the self-determination of all the Rivka in the name of security? Alina and Mal must summon all of the strength of their friendship to claim their personal power in a climate of political repression. All right. And Little Dog Lost by Marion Joan Bauer. Little Dog Lost is the sweet story of three creatures all in need of something. A little dog searching for a home, a lonely boy in need of a companion, and an elderly man ignored by everyone in town. Buddy, the little dog, used to have a home and a boy who loved her. But when her family moves to the city, they leave her with a woman who has no idea how to take care of a dog. Buddy ends up alone and wandering the streets of a small town. Mark is a little boy, an only child living with his mom, yearning for a dog, but his mother adamantly refuses to get him one. And Mr. LaRue is an elderly man living alone in a mansion in town. No one talks to him, and no one really knows anything about him. Mark spends a lot of his time with his friends and their dogs, but they don't have a dog park in their town where everyone can play together. Mark, whose mother is the mayor in town, devises a plan to go in front of the town council to propose a dog park, despite his mother's explanation that there just isn't any money in the budget for a dog park. With the help of his friends, Mark heads to the council meeting ready to deliver a dramatic and emotional speech. But a series of unexpected events leads everyone into the streets where the three characters meet. In this moment, Mark not only pleads his case for the dog park, but also for a dog of his own. And Mr. LaRue turns out to be the hero, providing the space for the dog park. Told in simple free verse, Little Dog Lost is a delight to read.
Okay, Laugh with the Moon. There are way too many dead parent books, as you people tell us every year. And this title adds to the list. Now, just calm down. However, the setting is so unusual here that it seems totally fresh. Claire's mother has died, and she is still grieving greatly. Her father, a doctor, decides to take them both from Massachusetts to Malawi, where he had been many years before, so he can work in a rural hospital for a couple of months. Claire is furious. How will she survive without her friends, her creature comforts, cell service, for heaven's sake? How could her father betray her like this? And she has to go to a tiny backwards rural village school where she doesn't even speak the language. However, first she meets a girl named Memory who becomes a close friend, and then she begins to see the students as individuals and to care about them. Then, at age 13, Claire is even asked to teach English to the first grade, a class with, wait for it, 176 children in it. You have nothing to complain about. Panic! How to keep 176 little wiggly children engaged when they don't even speak the same language. What would you do? Living in a different country always helps you to put things into perspective, and getting to know a third world one is eye-opening for Claire. Memory and she are alike in many ways, but Memory has a much harder life than Claire does, and she has suffered many more losses. And yet it is Memory who is able to help Claire, and a play that they work on together that brings everyone together. This book presents a great opportunity for studying a different culture and educational system. Both research and writing opportunities are many, and for a taste of Malawi, there's a recipe for sweet potato biscuits at the back of the book.
All right, so my first book is The Mighty Miss Malone by Christopher Paul Curtis. Now, 12-year-old Deza Malone is a firecracker with an inordinately positive attitude. She has $1 million vocabulary and doesn't know how to give her thesaurus a break, as is apparent in her assignment describing herself for school, which I will read to you because it's awesome. My most annoying trait is that some of the time I might talk a little too much. I can be very verbose. I also exaggerate, but that is because I come from a family of great storytellers, which is not the same as great liars. My most endearing trait, and being modest as I am, I had to ask my brother Jimmy for this, is that I have the heart of a champion, and steady as a rock, and can be counted on to do what is required. Jimmy also said I am the smartest kid he has ever met, but my all-encompassing and pervasive humility prevents me from putting that on this list. That's kind of how she talks all the time. So Des is only one of several amazing members of the close-knit Malone family, who are sure to have you laughing and screaming in frustration at the questionable decisions they make as they struggle through Depression-era Indiana and Michigan. Gang aft agley, as her teacher tells her. No matter how well you think something through, many schemes simply will not work out. As setback after setback strikes them, the Malones find a way to make it through, with darling daughter Deza, as her dad calls her, leading the charge. Oh, I think I'm up again. Okay. My next book is Will Sparrows Road. I care for no one but myself and nothing but my belly. That is how Will Sparrow leads his life. He is out for himself, and he will lie, cheat, and steal his way to get what he wants. But all he really wants is not to be hungry all the time, and to have a warm place to sleep, and maybe a few friends who care about him. But this is Elizabethan England, and times are tough, especially for a 12-year-old boy with no shoes who is now on the run. So why is Will on the run? Well, his dad sold him to an innkeeper for beer, and so now, as he was not being fed enough, he stole a cold rabbit pie. The innkeeper was done with him at this point, so he ran away, and obviously was chased by the innkeeper. So now, obviously, Will is on the run. While he is self-centered, a liar, and a thief, he's also innocent and naive. He is easily duped and has very little experience with trusting and being trusted. So during his travels, Will stumbles upon a troupe of oddities and curiosities, including a blind juggler, a mermaid baby, a bad-tempered dwarf, a half cat, half human girl, to name but a few. So join Will on his journey to find a place to fit in. Will Sparrows Road by Karen Cushman.
Chomp by Carl Hyacin. Mickey Cray had been out of work ever since a dead iguana fell from a palm tree and hit him on the head. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I was hoping for.
That's the reaction.
That's the first good reaction I've gotten. With this opening sentence, travel with me. With this opening sentence, Carl Hyacin has the reader hooked. Mickey is an animal wrangler in Florida with a teenage son named Wahoo. This is Florida, this is Carl Hyacin, just work with me. With a large mortgage, money is tight, so Mickey grudgingly accepts a job on the hit reality show Expedition Survival, starring Steve Irwin wannabe Derek Badger. Derek Badger is an obnoxious, coddled egomaniac with a fake tan and an even worse Aussie accent. He's a former Irish folk dancer who landed the lead on the show for his ability to swallow a live salamander without vomiting. Thank you. This is the funny book in the list. Derek gets bitten by a bat while on location and runs away with multiple search parties in hot pursuit through the Everglades on airboats. There's a lot of things going on at the same time. Derek is obsessed with vampire novels, of all things, and becomes convinced that he's actually turning. Chomp is filled with clever language, salty humor, and very quirky characters. Hyacin pairs social commentary about reality television. He really skewers the world of reality television with another environmental problem. People are dumping too many pet animals into the wilds of Florida. Come take a romp in the swamp, you might just get chomped. Okay. All right.
The Whole Story of Half a Girl by Vera Hiranandani. The Whole Story of Half a Girl is the story about a girl named Sonia who feels like she doesn't really belong anywhere. When the book begins, she's going to a private school that she loves, but then her father loses his job and the family can't afford to send her there anymore. So she enters public school where she doesn't really feel like she fits in. She's half Indian and half Jewish, so not only is she the new kid in school, she's also the new kid in school who's different from everyone else. She tries out different groups of friends and activities, but she still struggles to find meaningful and true friendships with people who like her for who she really is. She's also having some problems at home. Her father is depressed and still hasn't found a job. She's not getting along with her mother, and she's having difficulty connecting with her heritage. Is she Indian? Is she Jewish? Even at home, she's not really sure where she belongs. This is a coming-of-age story about a girl who's just figuring out who she is and who she wants to be. The book provides a good opportunity for kids to explore their own heritage, and it will encourage great discussions about friendship and self-discovery.
All right, the next book is Same Sun Here by Silas House and Neela Vashwani. What could an Indian immigrant girl living in New York City possibly have in common with a boy from the mountains of East Kentucky? Well, more than you might think. Okra, dogs, a strong bond with their grandmothers, dads who have had to leave the state to find work, and a shared love for language and writing. So for a class project, Meena Joshi and River Justice both choose the snail mail option and begin writing wonderfully rich letters to one another. The novel is a series of letters back and forth between them. That's the whole book. Meena loves to draw and is still adjusting to life in the U.S. She misses her grandma and worries that what might happen if her family is evicted from their rent-controlled apartment, an apartment they are not actually living in legally. River is a basketball player who loves the mountains of his home in Kentucky. He worries about the devastation being caused by mountaintop removal. They learn to appreciate each other's differences and to love the time they spend together in their letters. River may get grossed out when Meena describes how she shaves her legs, but their friendship gets stronger and they become best friends and confidants. Meena's drawings of New York City and the home that she left behind in India, and River's poetic descriptions of the mountains of Kentucky bridge the cultural gap between these two kindred spirits. A tragedy strikes each of them, and their letters to one another become a source of strength and optimism.
One for the Murphys by Linda Mullally Hunt. After a domestic dispute involving herself, her mother, and her mom's boyfriend, Carly is put into foster care. She's not a happy kid, she has a lot of attitude, and she has no desire to get along with her foster family, the Murphys. Carly doesn't feel like she belongs in the Murphy household, and she doesn't want the Murphys in her life at all. Little does she know that the Murphys will change her life forever. This is a tearjerker, but it's also very funny and hopeful. Carly, though at first really dark and closed off, is a very likable character, and kids will really enjoy getting to know her. It may be perceived as a girly book, but Carly also has foster brothers who play fun and entertaining roles. This year, a lot of books that were published featured kids in foster care, in orphanages, and in households with parental issues. Grace kind of discussed that. This one is one of my favorites. I thought it was one of the best of the year. And though it may be a common theme this year, the book is genuine and original and full of humor and hope.
All right, 4 Mile by Watt Key. For those readers who like the books with a dead parent that are dark and kind of depressing and gritty, this is the one for them. So Foster knows Dax, his mother's boyfriend, is dangerous, but he doesn't know how dangerous just yet. 12-year-old Foster lives with his mom on their Alabama farm, and since Foster's father has died, the farm has fallen into disrepair. One afternoon, a stranger walks down their road, and their life changes forever. Gary is walking to Texas and stops for a rest at their house. He ends up sleeping in their barn and offering to do some small repairs around the farm. And soon, Gary and Foster are working side by side, completing projects. Foster grows close to Gary as their relationship deepens, but Gary has secrets he's not revealing. Dax, however, does not take well to Gary's presence. There are a few standoffs between the two men, and ultimately a brutal battle ensues. Gary frees Foster and his mom from the clutches of Dax, but at the price of his own freedom. At times violent and often gritty and always honest, 4 Mile is a compelling story of loss, grief, and connection.
Okay, next is See You at Harry's by Joe Knowles. Fern's parents are so busy with the family business, they have little time for her. Her father is involved with thinking up PR that usually embarrasses the whole family, and her mother copes by going off to meditate. Her older sister is doing a gap year while all of her friends have gone away to college, so she's pretty miserable, and Fern's brother is struggling with coming out. Then there is the surprise baby Charlie, who at 3 is the center of everything. Where does Fern fit in? Does anyone even care? She feels invisible. Fortunately, she has a calm best friend, Ron, who assures her constantly that all will be well. We all need one of those. But then a terrible tragedy strikes the whole family, and things go from bad to horrible. Plus, Fern is sure that she is responsible for what happened. Things will never be the same, but can they at least get better? You think you know what this book is about, and then it changes totally, exactly as an unexpected tragedy can change everything in real life in just one moment. Be prepared with plenty of Kleenex when you read this one. Some of the book is based on Jo's life. Her family did own a restaurant in New Hampshire, and she did have a brother who died. She has started a Pinterest board with photos of the restaurant, including a menu from decades ago with fabulous prices, and other things related to this book. And I think you all know that we have 4 Vermont authors on the list this year, which is a first, and Jo is the first alphabetically of the 4. And I think that they're all interested in doing school visits. Ooh! And I'm going to actually gather that information from the 4 of them and have it at the DCF ceremony. So if you're there, you'll know. If you're not, oh well. No, I'm willing to share later.
Ungifted by Gordon Corman. Donovan Curtis has never been called gifted in his life. He's the kind of kid who just can't stay out of trouble. Then one day he gets himself into the biggest mess of his life. In a hilarious and ridiculous scene, Donovan ends up accidentally destroying the school gymnasium. He is sent to the superintendent's office where he expects that he'll either be suspended or expelled. But fortunately for him, there is an administrative mix-up, and instead of being suspended, his name is put on a list for students who will be sent to the Academy of Scholastic Distinction, which is a special school for the gifted and talented. So Donovan decides to go to the special school so that he can hide out from the superintendent before anybody figures out that he's the one who destroyed the gym. So he must do his best to try and fit in with his genius classmates. The only problem is that Donovan is completely ungifted. Can Donovan get away with it and trick everyone into thinking he's gifted? Or will he discover gifts he never even knew he had? This is a really funny and clever book told from different perspectives. Donovan's perspective, his teachers, and his fellow students. Each chapter heading lists the speaker's IQ, which is very cute. It's a great book for reluctant readers, particularly boys. It's also a surprisingly touching book with a little something for everybody. And it's a great read for discussions of acceptance and discussions on what it truly means to be gifted.
And no one dies.
And no one dies.
Wait a minute, does no one die?
That's not the first one, is it?
Just about.
No one dies in this.
Just almost.
The Cavendish Home for Boys and Girls by Claire Legrand. So let me tell you a little bit about 12-year-old Victoria. Victoria hated messes. She hated distractions. Friends were the worst distraction of all. She's a prissy, no-nonsense girl who sets ridiculously high standards for herself and everyone around her. A grotesque, intolerable B on her report card overwhelms her with nausea. A B on her report card was even worse than mud on the carpet or a tangle in her perfect blonde curls. So, despite the distraction that friends cause, she does have one, Lawrence. Yet she treats him very poorly, always criticizing him and telling him how he should eat, dress, and behave. How do you manage to get past your parents with those ugly shoes? Even though she calls him pathetic and hopeless, for some reason, he still holds her in high regard. But when Lawrence goes missing, Victoria is the only one who seems to care. In fact, she's the only one who seems to notice. Everyone seems to be in some sort of trance. As the cockroaches crawl all over the story, Victoria's search soon leads her to the Cavendish Home for Boys and Girls. But simply researching the orphanage tells her nothing. She needs first-hand information. So Victoria's toughness has made her fearless in the face of danger, and she marches off to meet Mrs. Cavendish herself. And Mrs. Cavendish tolerates her at first, but as the visits become too frequent, this frightening woman loses patience with this determined 12-year-old. Victoria shows her bravery and sense of friendship in her relentless quest to figure out the truth behind her friend's disappearance. This is creepy, scary, and absolutely delightful. It's perfect for those kids who come in and say, I want a really scary book, and you give them something, they say, no, scarier. This is a really good one.
All right, Temple Grandin, How the Girl Who Loved Cows Embraced Autism and Changed the World by Cy Montgomery. This is a fantastic biography of Temple Grandin, who is an advocate not only for animals, but for others like her who have autism. When Grandin was young, her parents felt like something wasn't quite right with their child. She didn't laugh, she didn't hug them, she didn't speak. Grandin's mother, however, refused to send Temple to an institution when she was diagnosed with autism, which was very common at the time. And throughout this, that was a turning point, and throughout this biography, we learn about some other major turning points in Temple Grandin's life that helped her to get where she is now, which is a woman with a PhD who's world-renowned in many fields. So one major turning point occurred at a small private high school in New Hampshire, where Temple began exploring her strengths as a visual designer. While she struggled communicating in words, she honed her skill as a visual thinker and was able to design a new tow rope for the ski hill there. And another turning point that we learn about is when she ventured to a ranch in Arizona as a young adult. And it was at this ranch where Temple recognized the fear and anxiety that the animals felt in their corrals and connected with them, because she often felt the similar fear and anxiety when she was in large groups or big situations. And she saw that the cattle were soothed when they went into the cattle chute. And so she gets right in, and there's great photographs in here of her in the cattle chute, and she said she just felt an immediate sense of relief. So she used her visual skills and design skills to build her own, she called it a squeeze machine, to help her soothe her when she felt distressed. As I mentioned, this is a really fascinating biography where we learn about Temple's, how she got to where she is now. So we learn about her life, and we also learn about autism. Montgomery does a fantastic job of really clearly and simply explaining autism to the reader. And Grandin also, she wrote the introduction, and she has some great tips at the end for kids on the spectrum.
The next is The False Prince by Jennifer Nielsen. To unify the divided people in the kingdom of Carthia, Connor, a nobleman of the court, devises a plan to create an impersonator of the king's long-lost son and install him as a puppet prince. He takes 4 boys from orphanages to compete for the role, including a feisty, defiant boy named Sage. Taken to Connor's elegant palace, they are trained to fight, to ride, to behave like a prince. Each of the boys realizes that the penalty for losing this contest will be death, so no one trusts anyone. Layer upon layer of treachery and deceit unfold until finally the truth is revealed, and with it, more danger and fear. This is an I can't put it down kind of book, and once the kids have read this, they will be very eager to read the sequel, The Runaway King, which is already out. Not surprisingly, given the fast-moving plot, there are already plans to make this into a movie. There is also an interesting musical connection. Nielsen says that a major influence for the book came from the music of Eddie Vedder, the lead singer of the grunge band Pearl Jam. From Vedder's lyrics, I knew all the rules, but the rules did not know me. Sage, Nielsen's protagonist, was born. The lyrics come from the song Guaranteed, written for the soundtrack of the movie Into the Wild. How's that for cool?
Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Told from 6 points of view, Wonder is the story of 5th grader August Pullman and his journey from sheltered homeschooler to private school student. The transition would be easy if Augie had not been born with severe facial deformities that horrify most people. Meet Augie and his fellow 5th graders Summer and Jack, potential friends or potential enemies. Watch Via, Augie's sister, transition to high school where her friendship with Miranda erodes as her romance with Justin blossoms. 1 year, 5 people changed by one young man. Palacio was inspired to write this, her first novel, after the following event. And if you've been to her website, you may have already read this, but I thought it was inspiring. About 5 years ago, I took my sons for ice cream, and while my older son went inside to buy us milkshakes, my younger son and I waited on a bench outside. My younger son was only about 3 at the time, and he was in his stroller facing me while I sat on the bench. At a certain point, I realized that sitting right next to me was a little girl with severe craniofacial difference, her friend and her sister or mother. When my younger son looked up and saw her, he reacted exactly the way you might think a 3-year-old would react when seeing something that scared him. He started to cry, pretty loudly too. I hurriedly tried to push him away in that stroller, not for his sake, but to avoid hurting the girl's feelings. And in my haste, I caused my older son to spill the shakes, and it turned into a mess. Basically a scene, the opposite of what I had hoped for. But as I pushed my son's stroller away, I heard the little girl's mom say, in a voice as sweet and calm as you can imagine, "Okay, guys, I think it's time to go." And that just got to me. For the rest of the day, I couldn't stop thinking about how that scene had played out. It occurred to me that they must have gone through this a dozen times a day, maybe hundreds of times, and what would that be like? What could I be teaching my children so that they could understand how to respond better the next time? Is don't stare the right thing to teach, or is there something deeper? All that stuff went flying through my head, and I realized that I was disappointed in myself. What I should have done instead was to try to get my kids away, and instead of trying to get my kids away and avoid the situation, was engage the girl and her mother in conversation, and if my son had cried, so be it. I should have set a better example, and instead I panicked. I didn't know what to do in the situation. Coincidentally, the song Wonder by Natalie Merchant came on the radio that night, and as I was thinking about the ice cream incident, something about the words in the song just got to me, and she started writing the book. We were surprised that it didn't win any awards. Kind of thought it would win the Newbery, but it didn't. But it really is sort of a life-affirming read. So that's Wonder. And I've got the next one as well. iFunny, which is completely different. And I have glasses, but I don't really want to wear them because I can't see. So those go with the book. James Patterson probably is including them with something. All right, meet middle schooler Jamie Grimm, a boy on a mission. He's trying to survive. He's living with a boring family, and he gets picked on by school bullies. We want Jamie to win the girl of his dreams and also win the Planet's Funniest Kid comic contest. That's a lot to handle, especially from a sitting position in a wheelchair. It makes it impossible to be a stand-up comedian. Bada bing. Come on. Karen, you gotta laugh. Come on. Thank you. Thank you. This is A road show's not going to work. Yeah. Okay. But don't feel bad. Don't feel bad for Jamie because he doesn't need your pity. He has his friends. He's got his loyal Uncle Frankie, who's a character unto himself, and Jamie has an encyclopedic knowledge of stand-up comedy to help him fulfill his dreams. With very corny jokes, a school bully who happens to be related to Jamie, it's his cousin Stevie, which doesn't make for a great situation, and a secret that he hides with humor, Jamie is a character that kids will love. And Laura Park's illustrations really help the story along. This is one of Patterson's successful middle school novels, but it's sort of a standalone, and I don't think there's plans for a sequel in this one yet. Patterson is also promoting an I Funny, You Funny contest on YouTube, and he's very funny, he's very dry, and he does sort of a mini routine with the boy from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and the kids will really like it. It's a sweet read. So that's I Funny.
Next book is Summer of the Gypsy Moth by Sarah Pennypacker. So picking up this book based on cover alone, you might think it's a completely different story than what is actually between the covers. Summer on the Cape. How much fun will Stella have? Not so much. She's spending the summer with her great aunt Louise because her mom has more pressing needs than taking care of her daughter, and Stella actually never even knew her dad. So she's hoping to spend a lovely summer at the beach while her mother sorts herself out. Now, Aunt Louise is a grumpy old sort who spends her time buying junk from the shopping channel. And Louise has actually recently taken in a foster child to keep Stella company. How nice. As kind as this does sound, Angel and Stella could not be more different. Stella loves to keep things in order. She looks for the good in people and approaches everything from a positive perspective. Angel is sullen, uncommunicative, and cynical. What they do have in common is they have both traveled on extremely bumpy roads thus far. So friends or not, they are now forced to deal with something kind of massive, a dead body, Aunt Louise's. So Angel's instinct is to run. She doesn't know these people. She doesn't care about these people. She doesn't want to deal with this. And Stella's instinct is to call 911 because that's what you do when someone dies. And because it's the law. But Stella also believes that a 911 wrecked her life before. So what will they do? Now, if you're worried about selling what sounds like a pretty maudlin book to kids, or more importantly, parents of kids, even though there is a dead body, that's not really what this book is about. It's about friendship and family and finding a way to work things out. So it's a wonderful read.
What to plant in your garden.
And it's about gypsy moths. I'm actually next too, so the next one is Shadow on the Mountain by Margie Prius. All me all the time. So, best friends Espen and Kjell find themselves on opposite sides when the Nazis invade Norway. So Kjell believes that the Nazis are there to help keep them safe, so giving up a bit of freedom is worth it. He chooses to join them. And as the Nazis begin to take over and restrict more and more aspects of their daily lives, Espen and several buddies on his soccer team decide that immediate and violent retaliation will only lead to more violence, even though all they want to do is blow up Gestapo headquarters. So they decide that their allegiance lies on the opposite side to Kjell's, and they join the resistance. Their help is needed immediately and often. And as their responsibilities are increased, so is the danger. So for Espen, working for the resistance involves lots of skiing through the beautiful Norwegian countryside, delivering messages, food, newspapers, weapons, whatever is needed. It also involves serious danger, a constant feeling of being watched, or worse, of being caught. So apart from the fact this is a gripping and suspenseful adventure, Shadow on the Mountain is also offers a great deal of historical information and an opportunity to delve further into this fascinating period in history. At the end, there's lots of links and information. Bonus for code breakers. It's a really nice book to hold. It's really well put together, and I think all kinds of kids will get a lot of different things out of this book.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks for saying thanks.
Finally, a dog book. Oh, no, we had one at the beginning, didn't we?
Oh, we did.
The Dogs of Winter by Bobby Pyron. In 1990s Russia, when Ivan's mother disappears, her abusive boyfriend tries to take the 5-year-old to an orphanage in Moscow, but Ivan escapes to the streets, 5 years old. There he first joins up with a group of homeless children, but then chooses to live with a pack of dogs who treat him better than the humans did. The dogs become Ivan's family, and together they survive in the forest in the summer and on the subway in the winter. The most amazing thing about this book is that it is based on a true story. In the 1990s, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, there was rampant unemployment, and even children with living parents were sent to live on the streets. One child, a real child, Ivan Mishukov, was found living with a pack of dogs 2 years after he disappeared. For further exploration, Pyrene includes many links to articles on Ivan, on homeless children in Russia, on Russian street dogs, and on feral children.
Finally, a book about a cat.
Good timing there.
Good timing. Zook is a dark brown cat with blue eyes, white markings on his belly that look like the state of California, a torn ear, bad breath, and a BB gun pellet in his right flank, and 26 toes. Most cats have 18. 10-year-old Una found Zook lying in a flower pot in the back alley of her apartment building and adopted him. Zook is a constant companion of Una's and her younger brother Fred and was right there in the hospital room when, sorry to say, Una's father died of cancer. I know.
It's the funniest part.
It's the funniest part. Now Zook is sick and has to stay at the vet's office, and Una and Fred are worried. To make Fred feel better and to buoy her own spirits, Una tells Fred that cats have 9 lives and that Zook is only on life number 5. She creates imaginative stories about all Zook's other lives. She keeps her notebook with her and draws rebuses to illustrate her stories and to help teach Fred to read. To make matters worse, Una's mother has started to hang out with a man who lives around the corner. And he is not just any man. He is someone Una calls the villain. She thinks he was Zook's former owner and that he was responsible for that BB gun pellet in Zook's leg. And Una is afraid that with the villain around, she might have to come clean about her big secret, that when she found Zook, he wasn't really a stray. She had removed his tag and had hid it in her room so she could keep him. This is a very heartwarming, many-layered story with an interesting, multicultural cast of characters. Una is someone you can't help but love, foibles and all. Big issues are not sugar-coated. Themes include coping with loss, family dynamics, keeping secrets, and storytelling, whoppers and all. Oh, I'm next too, aren't I? Okay, Maybe by Caroline Starr Rose. Maybe is a 12-year-old girl living on the Kansas prairie in the 1800s. Life on the prairie is hard. People live in sod houses, burn buffalo chips for fuel, have no running water or electricity, and travel by horse and wagon. When her father's wheat crop fails, May is pulled from school and sent to work on a neighbor's homestead. Her family needs the money her work will provide. She is told she will be gone for just a few months and will be back by Christmas. May does not want to go, but has no choice. It takes hours to get to the Oplingers by wagon. When May arrives, she quickly learns that the farmer's new wife is miserable. She does her chores and tries to cheer the wife up, but nothing works. One afternoon, Mrs. Oplinger saddles up the horse and leaves. A short time later, her husband goes after her. Days go by and they don't come back. May is alone in an unfamiliar place. Winter is coming, food is scarce, and her family is miles away. In addition to contending with hunger, cold, boredom, a hungry wolf, and being barricaded inside by snow, May also faces her own personal demons about her inability to read. She fights with the voices in her head that tell her she is stupid. She has brought one book with her, and when there is nothing to do, she tries to teach herself to read. May is likable, sympathetic, and readers will care about her. This book is told in free verse with a strong sense of place. Readers can see, feel, and smell the prairie as it was for a pioneer in the 1800s.
And she doesn't die.
And she does not die. Yeah. It's a survival story. I'm up again? No.
Oh.
Okay.
Not yet.
After Eli by Rebecca Rupp, who is another Vermont author. After September 11th, Daniel's older brother Eli decides to join the military and fight for his country. When Eli dies at war, everyone keeps calling him a hero. Daniel is not so sure. He's angry at his brother for leaving him behind, and he blames Eli for his own death. In order to deal with his grief, Daniel starts writing a Book of the Dead, which is a notebook where he lists and writes about people who have died in strange and interesting ways. For instance, he records people like George Mallory, who died while climbing Mount Everest, and Jenny Wade, who was shot at the Battle of Gettysburg. He explores how they died and for what purpose. He struggles to understand the meaning of death. As you can imagine, his family is struggling to move on, and Daniel feels alone and neglected. Will he ever understand why Eli had to die? Can he ever forgive him? And how will life ever get back to normal?
Glory Be by Augustus Scattergood. Glory turns 12 on July 4th, 1964, and there's a lot going on in the town of Hanging Moss, Mississippi. The town pool is segregated. There are questions about keeping it open, which worry Miss Gloriana June Hempel, glory to her friends and family, because every year she celebrates her birthday with a pool party. It's great, it's July 4th. Unfortunately, sign has come up. Sign has been posted, and they're not allowed to use the pool. Laura has arrived from Ohio with some strange ideas and clothing styles that set her apart from the other folks in town because her mother works for a clinic that cares for black people. Most town people feel the only way to deal with change is to close down the facilities that blacks and whites might share, the pool and the library. In the rest of the world, the Beatles are playing music that Glory loves, and Robert Kennedy comes to town to speak with members of Emma's church, and Emma is the housekeeper that cares for Glory and her older sister. Glory gets caught up in the segregation struggle and finds support from her father, who's a preacher, the First Fellowship United Church, and from her housekeeper, who sort of urges her to proceed cautiously. It's tough when it comes to segregation. Even her stuck-up older sister, Jesslyn, comes to support Glory in her struggle for equality in town, especially around the library. And there's a great librarian in this book, Miss Bloom, who says, libraries are about books. Books have no color, and they don't care who reads them. This is a good introduction to the civil rights movement, and especially to segregation. Glory is a very naive girl whose eyes are slowly becoming a little wider to the world around her.
All right, Bomb. The Race to Build and Steal the World's Most Dangerous Weapon by Steve Schenken. And I'm just going to read a little bit from the prologue. Prologue, May 22nd, 1950. He had a few more minutes to destroy 17 years of evidence. Still in his pajamas, Harry Gold raced around his cluttered bedroom, pulling out desk drawers, tossing boxes out of the closet, and yanking books from the shelves. He was horrified. Everywhere he looked were incriminating papers, a plane ticket stub, a secret report, a letter from a fellow spy. Gold ripped the papers to shreds, carried 2 fistfuls to the bathroom, shoved them into the toilet, and flushed. Then he ran back to his bedroom, grabbed the rest of the pile, and stumbled on slippers down the stairs to the cellar, where he pushed the stuff to the bottom of an overflowing garbage can. The doorbell rang. Gold walked to the door. He took a few deep breaths, trying to slow his heartbeat, then opened the door and saw the men he expected. Federal Bureau of Investigation agents Scott Miller and Richard Brennan. So I was hooked from the beginning. This is nonfiction. It's fantastic. It's about the creation of the atomic bomb and all of the people across the world that played a part in its story. The scientists and engineers in several countries, at first working together, sharing new discoveries, and later sequestered into secret labs. The KGB operatives embedded throughout the United States, trying to secure information about the bomb, and all of the ordinary citizens who found themselves a part of this story. While the subject matter in and of itself is fascinating, it's the writing and the storytelling that kept me turning the pages. The author makes the science of fission and fusion not only understandable but also interesting, and he skillfully details the actions of all the various citizens working for the KGB without any bias. Readers will finish this book with an understanding of the complex circumstances that surrounded the development of the bomb and leave them wondering if the story has ended. And I just want to read you the closing paragraph. In the end, this is a difficult story to sum up. The making of the atomic bomb is one of history's most amazing examples of teamwork and genius and poise under pressure. But it's also the story of how humans created a weapon capable of wiping our species off the planet. It's a story with no end in sight, and like it or not, you're in it. And it's also a great companion to Shadow on the Mountain, because the story that's featured in that is in Bomb as well. So.
Liar and Spy by Rebecca Steed. George and his family moved to a small apartment building in Brooklyn after George's father loses his job. George has never been popular, he doesn't have any friends, and he's picked on at school, so his father is always encouraging him to socialize with kids his age. One day, George sees a sign in his apartment building that advertises a spy club. With the encouragement of his father, George decides to check it out. He discovers that the spy club consists of one person, a homeschooled boy named Safer. Safer is a little odd, but he and George hit it off. He teaches George all about spying and sends George on a secret spy mission to spy on their suspicious neighbor, Mr. X, who Safer insists is hiding a dangerous secret. This is an exciting spy adventure with a couple of surprising twists. One of the twists involves his home life, George's home life, and the other, the secret spy mission. There's excitement and adventure here that will appeal to many, but it goes even deeper and addresses many more serious issues like self-acceptance, friendship, problems at home, bullying, and social anxiety.
The Boy on Cinnamon Street by Phoebe Stone. And Phoebe is the third of our Vermont authors who will be speaking at the DCF award ceremony on June 4th?
4th.
Okay.
Or on the 4th.
We're on the 4th. It all began with a very snowy winter and a pizza I ordered after my grandma had a yard sale. I think of that pizza now as a cosmic wheel spinning through the universe, changing everything. 7th grader Louise Terrence used to be a star gymnast. She used to have a lot of friends and a mom and a dad. Uh-oh. She used to be a Cinnamon Street girl. Now Louise lives on the other side of town with her grandparents, a quirky pair who love the Beatles and are always acting like ridiculous lovebirds. And they're genuinely sweet characters. She sells her balance beam, she quits the gymnastics team, and she changes her name to Thumbelina, because she's little. Not that little. When Louise finds a love letter after ordering a pizza during a snowstorm, she enlists the help of a couple of new friends, Rennie and her brother Henderson, to help to uncover the identity of her secret admirer. Is it Benny McCartney, the cute pizza delivery boy who sends Louise's stomach into flips? Or could those butterflies be a sign of a different connection, tied to the family tragedy that Louise won't let herself remember? As Louise's secret admirer slowly helps her frozen heart to melt, Louise has to face the pain that she's kept hidden for so long. This is a genuinely sweet love story, I have to say. And I've had an easy time recommending this to middle school girls because it's just a genuinely sweet love story. All right, next one is me again. All right. Personally, my favorite book on the list, The Expeditioners and the Treasure of Drowned Man's Cavern by Sarah Stewart Taylor. Computers have failed. Electricity is extinct, and there are more than 7 continents in the world. Did you know that? Well, there are. Famed explorer Alexander West has died, leaving behind unanswered questions about his death and a partial map for his children to find. He's got 3, Kip the Brain, who's 12, Mechanical MK, who's a 10-year-old girl, and Xander the Brave, who's 14. They must sidestep evil government agents and other greedy explorers who are all on the hunt for a secret treasure of gold. This is a fascinating blend of steampunk. The kids have a steel-clawed talking parrot named Poochie, and people travel by steam train, dirigible, and iron horses, as well as being a dystopian novel. Exploration is done for exploitation, pure profit motive. A lack of natural resources has created distinct classes ruled by an oppressive government filled with nasty people. The Expeditioners is best when the author focuses on the 3 siblings and their quest to clear their father's reputation. He died under mysterious circumstances, and they're still not sure what actually happened. Outfitted with the coolest utility vests you've ever seen, and you can see them on the inside jacket of the book, and they're just cool, I have to say. And I think she's got it on her website as well, but there's just nifty gadgets that they seem to come in handy just when they need them. Outfitted with the utility vests and aided by a glider pilot named Suki and a cliff-dwelling princess, this is one satisfying adventure that might make readers put down their GPS devices and look at an actual map to consider what might still be out there. And she's our 4th Vermont author who will be speaking on June 4th.
Last but not least, 3 times lucky. Uh-oh. Or not. Okay. Dear Upstream Mother, my name is Mo LeBeau, and I was swept into the town of Tupelo Landing, North Carolina, 11 years ago on the winds of a hurricane. That very same night, the Colonel crashed into town without a clue where he was or where he'd been. It made sense that we'd stick together. We opened up the cafe in town with the fabulous Miss Lana, to spice things up. Still, I can't help but wonder, Upstream Mother, if you're out there looking for me. Now trouble's brewing in the shape of a corpse and a nasty detective from Winston-Salem. I'd rather go face first in a plate full of chicken entrails than see the Colonel or my best friend Dale get accused of a murder they didn't commit. Upstream Mother, if you're reading this, a little luck would go a long way. 3 times lucky. That's the list.
Only if you think it's worth
We have a little bit of time. I mean, people have questions. We do have a couple minutes left.
it. Boy,
I know.
we go over.
A lot of dark topics this year.
Think about mine.
This one.
So, although it's sad.
Little dog.
Little dog lost for
Father
sure.
God Lost, Liar and Spy.
Probably Ivan. Ivan is a really easy read.
Yeah.
What about Maybe? We just ordered those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. I mean,
This, definitely.
maybe is historical,
good readers, but
really
it's nothing in it.
accessible. It's really, really quick read. You can read it in a couple hours.
So many books with dead parents in them.
Well, it's
I don't think there's so many with necessarily dead parents, but there's so many books just with issues that kids deal with. Otherwise, what makes a good story?
No, I get that part, but what's the proportion of children from harmful parents? In relation to the proportion of books that feature dead parents? I'm just.
Please show your graph.
Show you my graph.
I don't know.
I don't know the answer. I think it's skewed, obviously, because it can't be that much. But it's not that we choose them for that reason. No, I mean, I know you understand that, but I want to make sure everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, when I did YA literature like years ago, you always have to get rid of the parents in order for the kids.
To have, to be in charge.
Yeah.